Welcome to the I Am the Worst Parent Ever podcast with Nicole Merritt and Dr. Robert Zeitlin.
Hi, Robert.
Hey, Nicole, how are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing great.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear it. I have a question for you.
Yes.
Do you find it hard to apologize?
Oh, no, it's really easy to apologize. It's funny, actually. Yeah. No, it's really hard. Why?
I struggle with apologizing hard. I struggle hard. I struggle most with apologizing to my spouse. Having to apologize to my husband, I don't know. It's very tough for me. I have a hard time apologizing to my children. I would say I do it a little better than apologizing to him. But then I also find myself apologizing all the time to random people for things I shouldn't be apologizing for. I'll apologize that I can't make the play date, or that I forgot to bring something in that I was supposed to bring in for the class party, which things that I shouldn't really stress about apologizing for. So why is it that you think I can apologize easier to random strangers than my loved ones?
It's like that, it's a hashtag sorry, not sorry, right? It's like, why do we spend our sorries in the wrong places?
Yes, I never thought about it like that, but yes, I do. Yes, exactly.
I have been thinking a lot about the last couple of months, actually, really stopping myself before I say sorry, just reflexively, either, walking through a doorway with someone else, or an email I sent yesterday where there's nothing to be sorry about. They said, can you make this time? I'm like, sorry, I can't. Then I thought, am I sorry? I just can't. So I wrote, I can't. I think we need to start thinking about that we have like a budget of sorries and we don't want to start using them up.
I think that that's such a smart idea. Like just like you said, in emails or in quick conversations, and even me, like when I've texted you, I'll say, sorry I didn't respond sooner. There's no need to be sorry. We're busy. We have lives. We're not, sitting on the edge of our phones. But I do the same thing that you do. I do the same thing. And I like the idea of having a bucket. And saying, nope, I've apologized enough for today. I'm just going to say, this is me, and this is what happened.
Yeah, but on the other hand, like you said, it's so easy to give them away, but we're so miserly with them, with the people we love. What is that? Why is it so hard to apologize to our spouse, for instance?
Right. No, I definitely struggle with that. I guess within every home, there's, a balance of not power. Power is the wrong word, but you both want what you want when you want it. You want things to run your way. If you're the slow riser, you want everything to go according to your slow rising schedule. And if you're the fast mover, you want your spouse to fall in line with your fast movingness. So I guess there's that, if I say sorry, then that means you run the show, you wear the pants, where there should be that equal, we're both in this to support each other, not to be each other's enemy.
Right. And you said it's not power, but it does feel like a negotiation. It feels like if I say sorry, I'm kind of like undermining my negotiating position, and
right.
I start to compromise myself or negotiate against myself. I don't know what it is.
Yeah. But the funny thing is it's not funny, I guess, but I may be hypocritical. I force my children to apologize to each other all the time. My 2-year-old, age appropriately, will bite sometimes. It's something that we, of course, put a stop to. We teach her, no, your teeth are only for eating food, but developmentally appropriate. Thankfully, she doesn't do it outside of our home. She only does it to her siblings. But, I force apologies. Apologize to your brother or you're going to timeout. Do forced apologies work? are they effective? Maybe at age 2, but maybe not so much at age 6. I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I think it's your fault for raising yummy other siblings, because obviously they're more delicious than the other kids she runs into. But, forced apologies, I think, what's the goal? Like, is the goal for her to start feeling remorse and feel consequences for her behavior? Or is the goal to have some empathy for the person she just bit? Obviously the goal is for her to not do that anymore. But I think forced apologies, if I hear another parent or a teacher say, that wasn't really an apology, edit, sorry, like make eye contact, shake their hand, say you're really sorry. Once you get to the second and third take on a sorry, like, is it really having the effect that you want it to have?
Right. And I think, so yes, I think there is something to making sure that you do have your child say sorry for what they've done. But there has to be a step 2, step 3, step 4, where you're going through with them why they're saying sorry, how they need to say sorry, the tone of their sorry. Maybe they need to include their sorry in a statement, not just sorry, but sorry I bit you and that made you sad. Going further with it with them, not just forcing it, saying, go say sorry to your brother, and then mommy goes and takes another sip of her coffee and walks away. Like, there needs to be a discussion around why you should be sorry and something to feel.
Right. We've figured out we've figured out that there's good ways and bad ways to do timeout. So timeout can actually have a lasting effect if you do it a certain way. If you do it like the same way you just described the forced apology, with sort of like, go there, it's sort of punishment, you're bad and you should know it, and sort of the prison or sort of suspension version of timeout, not so effective. If you do it and you're there with them, when they're younger, or sort of frame it, so you're opening up and saying, this is why you're doing this, and then at the end of it you have a conversation about what happened, then it has a lot more lasting effect. And I think the same is for a forced apology. What's the system in your house for saying sorry? What are the steps? I have some ideas on it, but I'm curious, what are the steps that you've now figured out to take?
So, admittedly, I'm not holier than thou. I have said, go to timeout, and, I've closed the door and said, you sit there. It depends on the moment, and I'm not always the best parent in the moment. I do try. There's plenty of times where the adult almost has to put yourself in timeout with your child so that they stay in timeout if they're at the age where they're going to keep getting out of it, or they're at the age where they're not going to stay in that spot and they're going to grab that toy that's laying over there. And that's something that a lot of parents don't want to do, to put yourself in timeout, to stop what you were doing, to sit in timeout with your child, or to sit there while they figure out how to apologize and do it right. But it's definitely something you have to do. When I first started the blog, I wrote an article. I wrote myself a little note right here so that I can tell you. I came up with this idea for explaining sorry to your child. And I took each letter of sorry and I put smile genuinely, offer a hug, handshake, high five, some sort of affection, even if it's just, or a glance that lets the other person know that you're meaning what you say. Right the wrong by telling them what you did wrong and saying that you're sorry. Then rest your body and your mind. And then for the why, you are now calm and happy again. So I kind of came up with this step. Now, do I always take this time to go through that with them? Admittedly, no. But should I? Yes.
I think those are great. I think those are great steps. And I think, first of all, going back to your timeout story, I think there's times where we don't have the energy and you can't participate in, behavior management. I'm going to avoid calling timeout a punishment, because I think if you're using it as punishment, it's not, find a different way to punish if you're dying to punish your kids, which, by the way, as a psychologist, I'm going to tell you it doesn't work. Timeouts do work, and you do have to participate in them, and they're actually a behavior management tool. And the way you described it is right. You need to participate in it And sometimes it does take as much time for you as it does for them. It's not necessarily a break for a parent, although sometimes parents use that and need a break, and I understand that. But getting back to your sorry method, your SORRY, I love it. I love that there are steps involved. I love that you're slowing down the process, and I love that you're giving them both something to do with the person that they offended, and also something to take care of themselves. Like, there's two parties here. Let's slow it down and let's take care of both parties. I don't know what letter I would add, but there's a piece at the end of this that makes saying sorry much more effective, which is making some kind of commitment to do something different next time. And there's a whole other word, or maybe you want to edit I don't know, parents listening, but there's a whole process you can actually go through with your kid to say, what's something else you could have done, and get them thinking along those lines, like, what other possibilities are there? And then actually make a commitment and state their intent of what they're going to do different next time.
Yeah. That's so smart. It brought me back to one of our recent conversations where we talked about sitting with our kids at the dinner table and talking about something that you did kind today, right? And something that maybe you did that was unkind. So I started that. 2 nights ago, I started that with my kids. And my oldest one, easily, she comes up with 2, one for the unkind, one for the kind. My 4-year-old, he struggles to come up with something unkind he did, even when mommy tells him, like, you're not going to get in trouble for whatever you tell me now.
Right.
But my older one, she gets it. But now I'm thinking, why not include what's something I could have said sorry for today? Or what's something I said sorry for that I didn't necessarily have to say sorry for today? Because I think sometimes, even for us adults, like, sorry seems like this big, grandiose, I screwed up, But if you talk about it openly at the dinner table with kids and adults alike, and you're all, saying sorry, not throwing it around so that it loses its weight, but teaching them that it's okay to be sorry. It's okay to talk about being sorry. It doesn't have to be this scary, big thing. Maybe it'll become easier for everybody.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of interesting when you think about doing it with your 6-year-old, your 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old, like, at their level, what can they do in terms of taking ownership of something, unkind that they did, or saying sorry for something that I think they'll probably be closer to understanding something they regret or they feel a little remorse about, and maybe they should have said sorry. I don't know if they feel, I haven't asked kids, honestly, if they feel like they spend their sorries too much, like you and I both feel. I think maybe that's an adult thing. I feel like half the time that I'm saying sorry, or it slips out, is, coming from that lizard brain sort of inner critic. We talked about lizard brain before. That sort of inner critic part of me that's like, sort of scolding myself in a real quick second that I was to blame for something. Like, I wasn't, you rescheduled. I'm sorry I can't make it, but, like, I'm not sorry. I want to put in parentheses now when I say sorry, not sorry. But I wonder at their level, I'm really curious to hear how that goes. Like, if they feel like they say sorry too much, or if they, what's the balance of, like, am I kind? Am I unkind? Am I sorry too much? Am I apologizing too little?
Right. And I mean, part of that goes with, raising a perfectionist. She doesn't need to tell her teacher, like, sorry, my handwriting is, not perfect, or, so you got to be careful with that. One thing, like, we tell our children sometimes, like, your sorry has lost its power. It's lost its weight. You said sorry 6 times today for the same behavior. Now mommy doesn't believe you. I don't believe that you're sorry. You need to show me with your actions. So sometimes it does get to a point where the word is just, okay, I don't even want to hear it anymore. I want you to show me that you're sorry.
Right.
So it can get like that as well.
I wonder if there's a step process like your SORRY, or even adding the things that I suggested that actually don't involve the word sorry, kind of an overused, tired word.
Right.
But there is something about the power of apologizing and being heartfelt about it, and empathizing, which is kind of one of the goals that we are working towards in terms of getting our kids to play nicer together, at least stop fighting each other. sorry, I think can be a component of it. I wonder what a sorry-free apology would look like.
Right. I mean, yeah, I don't know if I would ever, and maybe it has to depend on what we would come up with in its place. I don't know that I would ever get rid of sorry, just because in my mind and in how I parent, manners are huge. Like my 2-year-old says, thank you. It's one thing that I'm proud of is my children, and not to say every time they say thank you, they forget, yes. But 90% of the time they say thank you if somebody holds the door for them. Grammys brings them a cup of milk. There's a thank you. There's a please when they want a bowl of pasta. I think manners are so important, and I do include sorry and that apology as a manner. So whatever we would put in its place, I would want right in there with those manners.
No, I get it. I mean, nothing warms a parent's heart more than to hear you have the most polite kids, or your kids have really good manners. I mean, it's part one of sending them out in the world to function properly, and honestly, at their age, to get noticed by adults. That they are well behaved and they're worth spending their energy on. Teachers and adults and coaches are going to want to spend more energy and focus more on the kids who seem like human beings to them and not sort of like rabid animals.
Right. And manners is such an easy way to spread kindness. Like, I can't tell you, like, just holding the door for somebody, like, that's coming into the library, like, and you just see their smile and they say thank you. And like, I feel just as good as they do because they smiled. And it's just like this gift that keeps on giving, in my opinion, to me. But I am, flabbergasted at times at how many times a door is closed right in front of me when they see me carrying a baby and a toddler by the hand and a purse and, and again, I don't always hold the door. I don't want it to sound like I'm, the perfect person, so far from it, but I try to remember these things, and I try to raise my children to have them in their repertoire as well.
Right. My sister moved to Georgia a few years ago, and when I came down and visited her for the first time, she said, it's different here. People hold doors. There's kind of like a Southern sort of chivalry going on. And I'm like, that's great, because I've always I've grown up that way, holding doors. And so I was kind of excited. The first time we're going to the gym together, and she went through the door, and I held the door, and I saw a gentleman coming. He's like a few feet away, which is right in that zone of like, I could have gone in, but it's more polite to hold the door. Right. And he was a few years older than me, and I'm holding the door, and I'm thinking, here I am, like adopting the local custom. And he's like, you don't have to hold the door for me. I'm not that old.
I know. But and then this is probably so hypocritical of me. I'll hold the door open, and then the person walks right by me with no thank you. And in my mind, I'm like, where's my thank you? I don't say it out loud, but in my head, I'm thinking, you could have said thank you.
No, when I work in schools, some kids get it, some kids don't. And I shrug it off half the time. I hold the door and the kid darts through, or a kid darts through the door and I'm right behind and they just let the door shut behind them. I'm like, all you can do is sort of spread your good mornings and look people in the eye and sort of spread by example and do it. And I think it's great that you're doing it to your kids. I wouldn't try to edit sorry out of that repertoire. I'm sorry I suggested it, but I'm just kind of curious what, like if it's an overused word or it's substituting for something else. If a parent is forcing their kid to say sorry and they go over angry with their fist still balled up and they're like, sorry, and they dart off, it's like,
right.
Why even bother? And how about if you did that without using the word sorry, like act it out, or, tell them how you thought that made them feel, or what are you going to do different next time?
Yeah, and maybe that's different child by child and personality by personality. You're going to have some people where genuine sorries might just come easier. And then some that it might not. So maybe for that child, you come up with a different way. And everybody in the family knows that if little Johnny comes up and shakes your hand and looks you in the eye, and says whatever it is, that means that little Johnny is sorry. And I think eventually he'll get to the point where he realizes, the rest of the world and the general public likes the word sorry. So I'm going to get there. I'm just going to get there slowly.
Right. No, it's definitely meaningful to people. And I think training them to use that word, but like we're saying, use it the right way in the right time, at the right level and with the right feeling is more important than just blurting it out.
Right. Can I ask you, when you were talking about being present in the time out with them, is that what I've heard of as a time in? Is that what a time in is, or is that something different?
I actually haven't heard the word time in, but it sounds like something like that. And basically,
it's being a part of it, right?
Sorry, go ahead.
Being a part of it, right? Like just being in it with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially for younger kids, the rule of thumb for timeout is that you want to have them sit on the step or in the timeout bench or wherever for the number of minutes of their age. But with younger kids, sitting there with them in silence and, being with them and I hate to make this sound like a huge metaphor, but it's true for any kid. How much can you be there and hold their hand and be with them while they're feeling what they're feeling? If they're feeling angry, if they're feeling remorse, if they're feeling whatever, you don't necessarily need to help them, escape that feeling. You're actually sitting there to help them sit with it for a minute. And so, especially with younger kids, whether you call it time in or whatever, I think sitting with them and, reinforcing the boundary while you're there, because maybe they can't do that themselves, is a really good idea.
And it's almost like how I told you in the beginning, I struggle to apologize to my husband. That's where I struggle the most. It's almost like I need to give myself a timeout and a time in so that I can come from a different place instead of coming from that place of, oh, my sorry is gonna give away my power, and definitely can't do that. Think about the argument or whatever it is in perspective, and come from a different place.
Yeah, I think that would be a really special item to add to our life buffet from before. How do we actually have our kids see us do that? Because it's sort of like when my kids were young teenagers or tweeners, and the challenge was trying new foods. So I realized I needed to put up and not shut up. And, so I started to eat a couple foods that I really didn't like, but they saw me trying, and It wasn't just a nibble and spit it out. It was to have a couple helpings and really try it and find out it's not so bad. And the same for you. How do you get to the point where you're doing the time out or time in for yourself, getting to the point where you're apologizing and actually having your kids see that process? I don't know how to do that yet, but as you figure it out, I'd really like to talk about it.
Yeah, because I can forecast that swallowing that apology is going to taste really bad, and I am not going to enjoy it at all. But I'm going to have to put on a brave face and model positive apologetic behavior more often than I do. So yeah, no, I'll totally, we'll have to talk about it again, and you can ask me how it's going, and I'll let you know.
Sounds good. I see an update episode coming up.
Okay, that sounds good.
All right, I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you for listening to the I Am the Worst Parent Ever podcast. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss an episode.